Nobody in Toronto expected to be talking about this matchup a week ago. And that's exactly why it's the story you need to hear right now. Because on one side of the net stands a 20-year-old from the Philippines who wasn't even supposed to be a factor in this tournament. And on the other side stands a former champion who has quietly become one of the most dangerous floaters left in the draw. And when these two collide, it's going to tell us something real about where women's tennis is heading in 2026. So stick with me, because this one has layers most people are going to miss. And if you're already a fan of Alex, then drop a comment right now, and let's get into why this match matters so much more than the seeding suggests. Let's start with what actually happened, because the build-up here is almost too good to be scripted. Alex walked into Washington a few weeks ago as a talented but still unproven 20-year-old. Someone tennis fans respected, but hadn't fully bought into yet. And she left that city as a champion, grinding through 3 separate matches that all went the distance, saving break points when her legs were screaming at her to fold, and beating opponents who specifically know how to feast on a young player's nerves. That's not a lucky title. That's a title built on refusing to break, over and over again, until the people across the net started believing it too. And then, instead of taking a breath and coasting into Toronto on reputation, she did it again. Friday night, in front of a National Bank Open crowd that had turned into a sea of Filipino flags, Alex faced Katie McNally, an American who has made a habit this summer of knocking out players who are supposed to beat her easily. The match had every ingredient of a letdown waiting to happen. New title, fresh expectations, a crowd expecting fireworks, and a dangerous opponent who had nothing to lose. Instead, we got a genuine battle. Alex took the first set 6-3, looking every bit like the version of herself that just won a title. But McNally clawed back, forcing a second set that swung on total razor edges before the American snatched it 7-5. That's the part that should worry anyone betting blindly on the hot streak continuing forever. Because for the first time in this run, we actually saw Alex look human. Her first serve percentage dipped. She had stretches where her rhythm just wasn't there. There was a moment mid-match where she even needed a medical timeout, nursing what looked like an ankle issue that could have ended the run right there on the spot. And yet here's the thing that separates the players who are simply talented from the ones who are actually built for this level. She didn't let any of it define the outcome. She came out for the third set and reset completely, breaking serve at love, and reeling off 3 straight games to close it out 6-4, finishing a match that lasted 2 hours and 39 minutes, and walking off court so emotionally spent that she nearly broke down in tears before she even got to the net for the handshake. That's her 7th straight win, 7 matches in a row where the pressure kept mounting and she kept finding an answer. And now it's landed her a 4th-round date with someone who represents almost the exact opposite kind of danger. Because across the net on Sunday is Belinda Bencic. And if you don't know her story yet, you need to, because it explains everything about why this particular matchup is so fascinating. Bencic isn't just some random seed standing between Alex and the quarterfinals. She's a former champion of this exact tournament, someone who lifted this trophy back in 2015 when she was still a teenager herself, and who has spent the years since building one of the most quietly respected resumes on the entire tour. She's 29 now, seeded 12th here, and she just went through an absolute war to even get to this point. Her 3rd-round match against Taylor Townsend lasted 3 hours and 24 minutes, one of those matches where both players are just refusing to give an inch, trading momentum back and forth like a heavyweight fight that keeps finding another round. Bencic lost the opening set in a tiebreak, which on paper should have been the moment things started sliding away from her, especially against an opponent as dangerous and unpredictable as Townsend can be on a good day. Instead, she leveled things up by grinding out a second-set tiebreak of her own. And then, in the deciding set, she found another gear entirely, breaking Townsend's rhythm and closing out the match 6-4 to survive one of the more physically demanding battles of the entire tournament. Think about what that actually means heading into this next match. Bencic proved in real time, under real pressure, that she can lose the first set of a brutal contest and still find her way to the finish line. That's not a small thing. That's the kind of resilience that veterans build over a decade of tour life. The kind that doesn't show up in a highlight reel, but shows up exactly when a match gets tight, and someone has to make the harder decision. So now we've got two players walking into Sunday from completely different directions. One of them is riding pure momentum, a hot streak, a first title, and the emotional fuel of an entire country cheering her on from thousands of miles away. The other is walking in with battle scars, tired legs, and the kind of hard-earned knowledge that only comes from having survived situations exactly like this one before. And that tension, right there, is what makes this such a fascinating matchup to break down. Let's talk about the styles for a second, because this isn't just two good players randomly thrown together. This is a genuine contrast in how tennis can be played at a high level. Alex isn't the biggest hitter on tour, and she'll never be confused with the players who overpower opponents with sheer racket speed. What she has instead is court awareness that looks almost unfair for someone her age. She reads angles before the ball even leaves her opponent's strings. She positions herself a half step ahead of where most 20-year-olds would be standing. And the longer a rally goes, the more dangerous she becomes, because she's essentially solving a live puzzle in real time, while everyone else is just reacting. That's an incredibly valuable skill against players who rely on rhythm and repetition, but it's also a skill that takes energy and focus to execute cleanly. And we just watched her wobble with exactly that kind of execution against McNally when the pressure spiked. Bencic, on the other hand, built her entire game around a different kind of control. She's not trying to blow you off the court with one big shot. She's trying to dictate the first 4 or 5 shots of every rally so cleanly that your only options become a low-percentage winner or an unforced error. That's a patient, positional style of tennis, the kind that thrives on a hard court that rewards aggression without completely punishing hesitation, which is exactly the surface these two are about to play on in Toronto. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because Bencic's game is built for exactly the kind of extended tactical battle where Alex has shown the first cracks in her armor this week. If this turns into a long, grinding chess match, patience against patience, positioning against positioning. That's the version of this fight where experience usually wins. And Bencic has more of that than almost anyone left in this draw. But there's a counter to all of this, and it's the thing that makes Alex genuinely dangerous heading into Sunday, rather than just a feel-good underdog story. Bencic just spent 3 hours and 24 minutes putting her body through a war. You don't walk away from a match like that fully recovered by the next day. Legs get heavier. First serve percentage tends to dip. The margin on those calculated positional shots starts to shrink because there's simply less fuel left in the tank to execute them with precision. Meanwhile, Alex, for all her wobbles against McNally, has played comparatively less cumulative tennis over these opening rounds. And she's carrying something that fatigue can't easily take away, which is momentum and belief. There's a very real version of Sunday's match where Alex comes out and, instead of trying to outthink Bencic in long, patient exchanges, simply plays faster than Bencic's body wants to move. Accelerate the points. Take more risks on the forehand. Get more first serves in at higher pace instead of feeding easy second serve looks. Turn this from a tactical grind, which favors the veteran, into an athletic track meet, which favors the 20-year-old with fresher legs and an entire nation's worth of adrenaline behind her. That's the blueprint. And honestly, it's not some secret strategy that only exists in theory. It's exactly what we've watched Alex do across this entire 7-match streak whenever she's found her aggression early and refused to let the moment shrink her. The real question isn't whether that blueprint exists. It's whether she has the composure to trust it against someone with Bencic's resume. standing across the net with a trophy from this exact event already on her shelf. Now let's talk about what this actually means beyond just one match, because there's a bigger story unfolding here that a lot of casual tennis fans are sleeping on. Alex isn't just having a good week. She's rewriting expectations for what a rising Filipino player can accomplish on the biggest stages in the sport. This is someone who broke into the main draw as essentially an unknown quantity outside of hardcore tennis circles. And within a matter of weeks, she's captured her first tour-level title and strung together the longest winning streak of her young career, all while carrying the weight of an entire country's hopes into every match she plays. That crowd in Toronto wasn't just supportive, it was electric, packed with flags and chants that made a neutral site feel like a home tournament. And there's something happening around her right now that goes beyond rankings and results. It's the emergence of a genuine fan movement following her from city to city. That kind of attention brings pressure most 20-year-olds have never had to deal with. And yet, if anything, it seems to be feeding her rather than crushing her, which tells you something important about her mentality heading into matches like this one. On the other side, Bencic represents a completely different kind of statement. At 29, in a sport that often gets discussed in terms of who the next great young talent is going to be, she's quietly reminding everyone that experience and tactical intelligence still matter enormously at the top level. This is a former champion at this exact event, finding a way to survive one of the longest, most physically demanding matches of the entire tournament and coming out the other side still standing, still dangerous, still capable of grinding out wins when her body isn't fully cooperating. That's not a story about decline. That's a story about a veteran proving she still belongs in exactly these kinds of high-pressure moments. So when these two walk out onto the court in Toronto, what we're really watching is a collision between two different eras of thinking about the sport. One side says the future belongs to hungry, explosive young talent that can close experience gaps faster than anyone expects. The other side says composure, court intelligence, and the accumulated wisdom of surviving hundreds of matches like this one still wins out when everything is on the line. Neither side is wrong, and that's exactly what makes predicting this one so difficult. If you're going purely off resume and big match experience, Bencic has to be the favorite, and honestly, the odds reflect that. She's been in these exact circumstances more times than Alex has probably played professional matches. She knows what it feels like to be tired in a deciding set and find a way through anyway. And she's shown this very week that she can do exactly that under maximum pressure. But tennis at this level is rarely just a math equation built on resumes. And there's a very real path here for Alex if she plays with the aggression and belief that got her to Washington and got her through that gutting 3-set battle against McNally. She's younger, she's fresher off less cumulative court time. She's riding the kind of emotional high that comes from breaking through for a first title and backing it up immediately on a different continent. And she's got a crowd behind her that could genuinely tilt the atmosphere in her favor during the tight moments that always decide matches like this. Whatever happens on Sunday, the bigger picture is already clear. Alex has fundamentally changed what people expect from her this month. And that shift isn't going away regardless of one result against a tough veteran opponent. Win or lose, she's proven she belongs in these draws, in these pressure moments, in these deciding sets against players who have been doing this for a decade longer than she has. That's the real headline buried underneath all the seeding and seeding-based predictions. A 20-year-old has arrived, and the only remaining question is how fast she closes the gap between arriving and actually taking over. So here's where I land on this one, and I want to be honest rather than just telling you what's exciting to hear, because Bencic's experience, her tactical discipline, and her proven ability to survive exactly this kind of grinding high-stakes situation make her the more likely winner on paper. She's been here before, literally, on this exact court, with a trophy to prove it. But paper predictions and betting favorites are not the same thing as guarantees. And there's a genuine, believable scenario where fatigue catches up with her at the worst possible moment. where those heavy legs from Friday night's marathon start betraying her in the third set, and where Alex's fresher body and full-throttle aggression turns this into the kind of statement upset win that defines a career. If she plays scared, if she tries to out-patient a former champion who's built her entire game around exactly that kind of extended tactical battle, this match slips away from her in straight sets or a tight 3. But if she trusts the blueprint, plays fast, plays fearless, and treats this like an extension of the same fire that got her through Washington and through that McNally battle, then we could be watching the beginning of something much bigger than a single fourth-round win. That's the tension worth tuning in for. That's the story underneath the scoreline. And honestly, that's why this match, more than almost any other happening in Toronto this week, deserves your full attention. Whatever the result ends up being, remember this moment. Because we're either about to watch experience remind everyone why it still matters at the highest level of this sport, or we're about to watch a 20-year-old take one more step toward becoming the story of the entire season. Either way, women's tennis just got a lot more interesting, and Alex is right in the middle of why.